Today, we are joined by Steve Latham, a Forex startup founder, mentor, and now the force behind Donate Stock, a platform transforming charitable giving through technology. After a career in ad tech, Steve made a powerful pivot, using fintech to unlock billions in untapped donations for nonprofits. In this episode, we dive into how Donate Stock is making stock gifting as easy as a PayPal transaction, why Steve believes legacy is more important than liquidity, and what every entrepreneur should know before launching their next big idea. Join us as we explore fintech for good, navigating change in resistant industries, and building impact that truly scales. All right. I'm here with my new bud, Steve Latham. Steve, you've got a great history with 4 startups under your belt. The latest one, Donate Stock, is really exciting. But the first question I have for you is, what got you interested in the intersection of humanity and technology?
Yeah, it's a good question. I will admit it's something that I didn't think a lot about in my younger years. It's something when you turn 50, you start thinking about things differently, and you think about you look at where you're spending your time, your energy, what you're trying to build, and for what purpose, and then you ask the question, am I making the world any better or not? That was kind of me, and a few years ago. So for me, it's I think I was rated pretty high on the empathy scale. My mom was a fundraiser growing up with the American Cancer Society, so I grew up doing fundraisers with her. I always been really involved on the nonprofit side. It also been always been just a 25-year startup junkie, I guess the best way to think about it. I just love the innovation, the creativity of starting a new company, especially in the technology of the software arena and solving new problems. And as I got older, I spent 18 years in advertising technology. Should start there. We were not making the world any better. If anything, we're probably making it a little bit worse, helping brands optimize online engagement with consumers. I looked back and was like, we definitely were not making the world any better. But hit a certain point where I was like, okay, if I'm going to work this hard, I want it to accrue to something important, something bigger and better that can make the world better. And again, when you turn 50, you start thinking about things differently. And I thought, should I get involved in startup or nonprofits again, or volunteer or something to really invest my time and helping. And then I realized the most impactful thing I can do is help thousands of nonprofits unlock millions or billions of dollars in funding to serve the people that they care, that they serve in their communities. So that was really kind of what led to solving this problem that I came across 15 years ago, which is charitable stock gifting. As we'll talk about, it's one of the most efficient ways to support nonprofits, tax managed ways to share your gains with them. But it's one of the most least utilized ways of supporting charities and schools, nonprofits, what have you. And that was really the challenge. Is like I see a big opportunity to unlock a lot of funding for worthy organizations, and it's going to be technology based. It's a tech forward approach. That's the only way we can solve this is by replacing old manual archaic processes with an easy button, with easy technology to allow people to think about stock gifting just the way they would doing a PayPal transaction. And if we can do that, the idea is like we can make the world better. We can help humanity by leveraging and applying technology in new ways. So I guess I didn't think about it in this exact same terms you asked me, but that's kind of how I got to doing something that you think of as fintech for good or philanthropic technology. There's a lot of different terms for it. We just think of it as at the intersection of fintech and philanthropy.
And I think that's beautiful because, as we were talking about before, it's a much easier ask for me to pull something from the investment account than to pull it from the checking account, right? Like 10K in one looks a lot different than 10K in the other. And at the same time, like as you're looking at your, the capabilities that you added for the ad tech space, but now looking at like how do you apply this so that it can actually support people in a nonprofit? What were the challenges that you came about when trying to donate stock that made this
Oh,
so
okay.
difficult? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me the challenges of trying to commercialize a new technology in the nonprofit industry. That's a
Oh,
whole
that's
nother
that's
conversation.
going to be a great next question.
Yeah, we'll need time. So this was, go back to 2008, I think it was. A friend of mine is a financial advisor. His whole practice he was building and going around helping affluent families thinking about charitable giving in a different way. Instead of writing checks, you can donate your appreciated stock. You can avoid the gains. So with the two big benefits are, one, you can avoid the capital gains tax. If you bought NVIDIA 5 years ago at cost adjusted $12 a share, $10 a share, and you sold that today at 130, you're going to pay a gain on a tax on the gain of whatever, $110, $120, right? Whatever it is, it's a big gain. If you think about the tax savings for donating appreciated shares, the biggest benefit is, one, you get to avoid the capital gains tax, which can really stack up if you live in a blue state. There's not just a federal tax on gains, but then you have state gains on top of that, state taxes on those gains. And so it can be really expensive. So my friend is telling me about the benefits of donating appreciated stock. You don't have to pay the capital gains tax, and the charities don't, because they're tax exempt. So no one pays that capital gains tax. In fact, the nonprofits get to keep the money that would have gone to pay taxes. So you can actually have greater impact by making a pre-tax gift of appreciated securities than you could after tax. You, the donor, by the way, you also save a ton. You avoid the capital gains tax, and then you can itemize the current market value, as long as you've held it more than a year. So when he told me that, I thought, wow, that sounds too good to be true. I was wanting to give a gift to a scholarship fund that had given me a scholarship in college. And so I thought it'd be, pay it back or forward, whichever way you think about these days. And I was like, I want to donate stock to you. And they're like, well, we'll get back to you. A day later, like, okay, here's some instructions. And I was like, okay, what do I do with this? I don't know, call your broker. So I call my broker and, like, you need this information. I go back to them to get some more information. Then I had to fill out some paperwork. And then I had to figure out how to get it to them, and literally had to drop it off in person. And I thought, this is just too much work. It was several hours over a few days, and it was just too much hassle. And I was like, I'm not going to do this again. But I wrote my little notepad of business ideas over the years, fixed stock gifting. This is one. If one day I have the opportunity, this definitely needs to be addressed. And then fast forward to 2020, yeah, kind of about right early days of pandemic, just about 5 years ago. But this time, I was thinking about that. The company that I acquired, my advertising technology company, we were in discussions about a final sale to a private equity firm, and I knew that there was liquidity about on the horizon. I can started thinking about what I want to do next, and that's when that I went through my list. I remember the stock gifting idea, and I did some quick research and realized no one had solved that problem. I was like, oh, that's awesome! Like, we can go out and unlock billions in funding if we can make stock gifting easy for the average person who doesn't have a financial advisor to do it for them, or doesn't want to deal with the hassle themselves. And that was really the starting point, which kind of became the idea for donate stock.
That's really exciting. What do you want to see come from this?
My goal, our mission, is to transform charitable giving by making stock gifting accessible and easy for everybody, both for the donors, financial advisors, and nonprofits. So I look at it as it's probably my first company I had started, not just the goal of getting it up and running and flipping it. That was kind of what the playbook in the past. This is something I really would like to see more of a legacy, something that's going to live on and over time be instrumental in unlocking tens of billions of funding for nonprofits. Stock gifting should be 50 to 75 billion a year in funding for nonprofits. It's probably 2 to 3 billion. It's tiny. It's just barely scratched because of just the friction, the hassle that donors have to deal with, that their advisors have to deal with. What I didn't realize till we got into business is it's actually even more difficult for the nonprofits. So first of all, 95% of charities can't even get a brokerage account because of the compliance requirements. So, like, if you walk in it's not specific to these guys, but a Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, these really friendly retail brokerages, and you're a small charity, like under maybe $500,000 in funding annual budget, they can't open an account with you without like jumping through a bunch of policy issues, because there's a high propensity for fraud. I mean, it's higher compliance requirements. They have the anti-money laundering, AML, and KYC, your customer compliance requirements. So they have all this cost to open an account for you, and knowing that you're not going to build assets in it, you're just going to use it to receive a few stock gifts, sell the stock, and move the cash out to your bank account. So they lose money opening these accounts. So most of them have policies against opening brokerage accounts for small charities. You go to community foundations out in the small communities. I know there's one out in Sky introduced us to one out in rural Connecticut, and they don't have a brokerage account and they can't receive stock, and they can't. There's no one in town. Their bank can't help them because they don't have a brokerage arm. So then we're going to have to go to a money center bank to open an account in the city to receive stock. And then their local banker's not happy about that because that means they're probably going to lose them as a customer. So it's just a lot of kind of lack of access, and accessibility is a big problem. It's even more challenging though for those that have brokerage accounts, because what's really mind blowing about this is if you and I both donated, let's say, 5 shares of NVIDIA to, pick a charity. You're in Philadelphia, so let's say, Boys and Girls Club of Philly. If we don't tell them we're sending that stock to them, they'll never know it came from us because the donor's identity does not travel with the stock. We would initiate transfers from our brokers, each send 5 shares of NVIDIA, and they would receive 5 shares on Monday, 5 shares on Tuesday, no idea who the donor is. So we're waiting for thank you notes like, hey, we just did this benevolent thing. And they have no idea who we are. So it's not until we reach out to them and say, hey, did you get my NVIDIA shares I sent you? They're like, we did, but we got a bunch of NVIDIA shares. Tell me like how many and when and what brokers did you send them from? They have to go research just to tell me definitively, did we get the shares? And then it's just deduction for them. They're literally having to, well, we deduced that no one else claimed these shares, so these are probably yours. So we'll go ahead and give you a receipt for it. There's no deterministic ID there, as we would talk about it in other like financial parlance. So it's a broken bias system. That's the problem. It boils down. It's an archaic system. The financial system was never set up to initiate, to facilitate stock gifts between donors and nonprofits. So they use some other pipes that don't include things like the donor's identity. So it's a really screams for fintech solutions to solve these problems using technology, using software, using modern architecture to solve problems that have persisted for decades. And that's really why it's been kind of a 1% solution. A lot of donors aren't even aware of the benefits. That's another big challenge. Most donors are not aware of the benefits of stock gifting. They're writing checks when they have millions of dollars sitting in their brokerage account. That's financially irresponsible. It's like, if nothing else, you could be letting the nonprofit keep the money you would have paid in taxes. If nothing else, if you don't care about the tax gains or you don't want to write it off, no worries. Give them a bigger pre-tax gift.
So do you get the write-off of your cost basis on the stock, or you get your
No,
write-off
the
on
current value.
the current
Yeah.
value of it? So you don't pay the capital gains
Right.
and you get the write-off of the total value of, okay.
As long as you held it more than a year. Yeah. If you've held it more than a year, then yeah, you get to write off today's value of NVIDIA or Apple or Meta or any of these high flyers. And that's it's almost like an unfair way to give. It's like, it's so biased towards people with assets. Like, they should be taking advantage of it, right? Because it benefits nonprofits, right? And charitable organizations. So that's really that's our mission, is to unlock stock gifting by making it accessible for everybody, all nonprofits, all donors, and easy for everybody, the donors, the advisors, and the nonprofit institutions.
I absolutely love that. So what are some of the challenges that you've overcome? I know you've been doing this now for, it's like 4 years.
5 years, yeah. Started working on it as a project 5 years. It was a side project 5 years ago, and then it turned into like a full-time thing about 4 years ago. One is where it's a blue ocean. Like, there's no model, there's no analog, there's no, well, this is the business model that they use, so let's use it. It's really kind of charting the path into the unknown in every aspect, in terms of how do we initiate the transactions, how do we facilitate them, how do we monitor them, because they're not direct. They have to go from the donor. We send a request on behalf of the donor to their brokerage, instructing them to transfer the shares through the system to this account. When we found out that 90% of charities can't even receive stocks and have a brokerage account, that was a kind of an unexpected. What do we do with this? So we created our own 501c3, which basically is the donor advised fund, if you're familiar with those. So we route today about 90% of all of the stock gifts we process go to our donor advised fund called Donate Stock Charitable. And that's who the actual donor gets the receipt from. And then the donor advised fund turns around and sends the cash to the recipient. So nonprofits don't need a brokerage account anymore. So no brokerage, no problem. We process gifts. We originally created that for the small ones that didn't have brokerage accounts. Then we found that our largest customers also like that approach. I think I mentioned discussions, like we've seen some really amazing results with customers like World Central Kitchen, with Shriners Children's Hospital, Environmental Defense Fund. And we process the gift and send the cash. They don't want to touch the stock. It's very, like I said, they don't know whose stock is whose. Even with the dashboard you provide, and they're like, it's still a lot of manual work, even if can map up whose is whose. And we can frankly do it better, faster, cheaper than they can do it, to reconcile the gift, to acknowledge the donor, and send the cash to them. And so they don't have to touch it. So it's just more ease, efficiency, scalability for the nonprofits by letting us do that hard work for them. And we don't charge extra for that.
Oh, that's really beautiful. So you've really, I mean, it sounds like you have a solution in place for the small brokerages, the large, not even brokerages,
Small nonprofits, yeah.
small
The big
nonprofits
ones.
and
Yeah.
and the big ones as well, because of
Yeah.
the ease and the efficiency that you provide. And then additionally for the donor too, I'd imagine that you've made that process significantly easier for
Super
them.
easy. Yeah. What took me hours to do, you can now do in just, it's like a PayPal transaction. It takes 5 to 7 minutes to make the first gift online, because you just have to provide some brokerage information, specify the shares you want to donate, choose the charity, and we do the rest. Subsequent gifts, after you've provided your brokerage info, you just log in. I want this charity, this number of shares of Apple, submit. It's really just 2 minutes. So we've compressed all that hassle and time into a really elegant, easy customer experience, a donor experience. And then we just do the same on the back end, the automation and efficiency. So I'd say we have a great solution. It works. We processed to date just over $32 million in stock gifts now, and we're still just getting started. I mean, we're targeting billions, so we're still gaining, but we're I think over 3,500 transactions. We have a really high success rate, and that's people say, well, why wouldn't it be 100%? Because it's impossible. Because what happens is a lot of brokers will just drop the request. They will delay it. They will come up with some arbitrary reason, not to process it. And it requires sometimes it takes some follow-up work to remind them that this is on them to do it. And eventually we get pretty much all of them through, but it's harder. It's just not as easy and clean like a credit card transaction, or even a crypto wallet to wallet is really easy. This is going an indirect, circuitous route to get from the donor's account into the nonprofit's bank account. So we have to facilitate a process. We don't always have control over the assets, and that we're really kind of tracking it and guiding it and nudging it through the process. So those are, we have a great solution. It's working well. It's kind of state of the art. We have the trust of some of the largest nonprofits, and now there's a lot of fundraising platforms in the industry too that have now realized, like, trying to build a stock gifting app makes no sense. It's really difficult. And I tell people, we've been doing it for 4.5 years. It's all we do, and it's still really hard. And this is not something you can be, an inch wide or an inch deep and a mile wide. You've got to be, really narrow, super deep on it, or the donor has a bad experience and they'll never give again. Right. So it's like you have every donation matters. And these are large gifts. Average gift last year was $7,900. So these are not like, here's my $50 stock gift. If it doesn't go through, no big deal. This is a $20,000 gift. It has to go through. I need it in quick, because if the stock crashes while it's in the midst of being transferred, that's going to cost me money. It's going to cost them money. So time is of the essence, expediency, efficiency. So we've really focused on just making that as elegant, easy experience for the donor, as effective, and as realizing maximum proceeds for the nonprofit. And thus far, so good. But the challenge you kind of alluded to earlier, the biggest challenge is kind of marketing a new solution, affecting change in an industry that just doesn't change very fast. In the charitable giving industry, it's massive. People have no idea how big it is. It's we were talking about the scope and the scale of the industry. I spent 18 years in advertising technology with probably 5,000 other funded startups, all competing against each other for the scraps that fell off of Google and Facebook's plate in a $300 billion market. So Facebook and Google give them 60, 70% of the market, right? That remaining third that they weren't consuming was being of a $300 billion market, maybe $100 billion was being, fought over by 5,000 venture-backed startups. That was tough. Our industry, it's charitable giving is 550 billion just from individuals and private foundations. If you add in federal grants, it's another 300 billion. So you're talking about an $850 billion industry, and there's maybe 200 companies in the space. It is highly, I mean, it's super fragmented, not fragmented. And they're not even, I wouldn't even say it's consolidated, because most nonprofits are just underserved. They don't even have a solution for this or that, even though there might be a couple of solutions that exist, because again, they don't operate with the same objectives as a typical traditional company. Like, we want to maximize revenue, minimize our costs, maximize the bottom line. For most of them, their whole the culture, the ethos is like, let's just make sure we have enough funding to do our job without laying people off, right? That's kind of their goal. Like, yay, we made our number. No one has to get fired, and no one really gets fired from nonprofits because there's people with big hearts. They're not generally winning awards for operational efficiency. So we have to work a little harder to try to help them be effective operators and connecting the dots for them to here's how to fundraise better. Here's how to do a better job at donor relations, and a lot of it. Again, my mom was this person, right? So I grew up seeing this from the inside of, you know, they're tasked with fundraising, public relations, marketing, collateral, customer support. They wear a lot of hats. So we're trying to bring in, one of many vendors trying to bring a new solution, new way to fundraise. So it's hard. It just takes a long time to get to find those early adopters, the innovators in the industry that are looking for a solution. Will actually, put some resources behind it. Most are just saying, I got too much on my plate. I'll look at it when I have to, or when it's urgent, or when I'm being told I have to do it. So it's a massive opportunity, but it's a long, slow bleed in process.
Well, yeah, because you're talking change management, right? Like the opportunity for somebody to figure out how to actually use a new tool and then to find the value of it is incredibly difficult when it is not an urgent sort of demand on somebody. Are you going at getting clients, which are your nonprofits, by going directly to the nonprofits, or are you bringing donors to them?
Both. So one is we do a lot of outbound to specific organizations that we want to help, that we feel like we can really help more than others. Pretty much every nonprofit we can help, but some that are a little more progressive and exploring other ways to fundraise are going to be a little more quick to adapt to new technologies, new approaches. By the way, most of the larger ones have been receiving stock gifts for decades. It's just something they get on a one-off basis.
Yeah.
There's an organization, I won't say the name of them because I don't want to make them look bad, but having a conversation with their CFO, and she's like, "Oh, we received over $1 million in stock gifts last year. We're fine." I'm like, "Great, right? I know how big your organization is." They received 40 stock gifts in the previous year. I said, "How many actual donations did you receive?" She says, "Oh, about 150,000, 50,000 to 40." Like, and you think you're okay. In my mind, I'm like, okay, you're not the right person to talk to because you think that's okay. You're like, look, we're doing great. We got $1 million. Yeah, we got $100 million from credit card and cash, but we got $1 million from stock, and we didn't really have to do much. We certainly didn't have to pay fees for it. My approach is like, would you rather have $9.70 out of $10, or 100% of $1? Like, what you choose? Like, they're not always that really good with the business math, I would say sometimes. So we have to educate them that like, this is new. It is hard. It is challenging. It takes a little bit of work. It's new to get your head around, but it's really quite easy, and we do it all for you. So we're trying to show them here's an easy way to grow. And to really to accelerate their mission. But again, it's challenging. What was your specific question? I think I got off track there.
It's all good. I was looking at like how you're gaining customers, whether it was through, like, are you bringing donors?
Let me answer that question again. Yeah. So the answer is both. We do a lot of outreach directly to nonprofits, especially those that we see are more progressive and looking for new ways that are open to new technologies, new approaches, and want to grow. We also get a lot of gifts for nonprofits we don't know. So one of the things that we designed our site when we created our donor advised fund, our 501c3, to facilitate gifts, we basically were able to create a web page for every nonprofit at donatestock.com. So if they're a 501c3 in good standing, you could donate stock to them today on our site. 99.9% of them we don't know. There's a lot of them. There's 1.5 million pages. But what happens is you can initiate that gift. Well, it's just like when you give a gift to a fundraiser through Facebook, through the PayPal Giving Fund. The money goes to PayPal. They then contact the charity and initiate to transmit those proceeds to them, normally with cash. We do the same thing with stock. We'll contact the nonprofit and say, "Hey, you've got, Mr. X gave you a $10,000 gift of however many shares of NVIDIA. We've already processed the gift. We just need you to provide so verify your organization, verify your identity with us, provide us ACH information so we can send you the proceeds. And now that you're getting stock gifts, let's help you go get more of these." So that's actually how we've been introduced to probably half of our customers. We have about almost right around 3,000 nonprofit customers now. I'd say half of them have come through these gifts from an existing donor on our platform who says, well, I just gave to my local, whatever, church, synagogue, charity, community foundation, whoever it is, or I just gave to a national or a large national one. Who else can I give to? And the answer is anybody. And it's so easy to give stock to other charities once you've made that first gift. So we do a lot of, especially in the holidays, like we had, hundreds of them, new nonprofits that we had to go out and engage because we had gifts for them back in November, December of last year. And it's a great thing. It's like, hey, we've got proceeds for you from this donor. Now, unfortunately, some of them think it's a scam, or they're being, they're like, oh, this is clearly a scam. You're saying, oh, this person made a $10,000 stock gift to me, and you're just going to send me the money, right? Would you think I was born yesterday? We're like, that really is what happened. Like, come to our website, look at our references, look at our clients. Look at our partnerships. Like, we are credible. Like, we've been in all these magazines. Like, and it takes there's one it's a Habitat for Humanity out in Seattle. We had to follow up with them for like 2 months and they kept ignoring it, and finally I got through to somebody. They're like, we're sorry, we thought this was a scam. I'm like, I get it, but here, we have $5,000 for you. Can you just come sign up with us, register your organization, give us the information so we can send you this money. So that's how a lot of it comes. So our donors actually do a lot of introductions to the nonprofits for us. And then they say, look, I want to give my stock this way, sign up with them so I can give you stock gifts. And it's a win-win.
What advice do you have to other entrepreneurs out there?
All right. I have, it's normally 2 to 3 to 4 key takeaways over 25 years. The first one is do as I say, not as I did. Don't start a company in an industry you don't have prior experience in. I've done it twice and it's always hard. It's so much harder. Like if you're Bernie, you have the best idea in the world and you're like, I'm going to solve this problem. Somebody's doing something similar, go work for them for a couple of years, learn the business, learn the industry, build your network, build your reputation, learn how the operations work in that business, then go start your own, right? Don't go raw into it and recognize you're gonna be at the bottom of a super steep learning curve. I've done this twice and it's just, like I said, do as I say, not as I do. It's hard to, when you're really passionate about something, it's hard to tell somebody that, but I tell people, I was like, don't do it unless you have experience. Especially like I used to speak to a lot of, get invited to speak to college classes like entrepreneurship programs. And I would always say that, and half the kids in there have a business plan to go start this next technology company, be the next Michael Dell. I'm like, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Like 99% of you are going to crash and burn. And then it's going to leave you with a bad taste in your mouth about what startup life is like. And then you're going to get a job selling insurance. Like that's just not, it's not going to serve you well. I've just seen it so many times. So work for a startup, work for a good entrepreneur, work for a founder, and be there, be a sponge, learn all you can. So that's number one. Get the experience before you do it. Secondly, realize the original business plan is never what you end up with. I mean, you don't really understand the problems that need to be solved until you are down in the depths of whatever category or industry or business model. And you realize like what you thought was the problem is really not the big problem. You realize there's a much bigger problem, and then you pivot to go solve that. Or you realize the original business model, some assumptions you made are not going to hold up. So don't marry yourself to an idea, and don't spend too much money until you validated it. That's another problem. Again, do as I say, not as I did. It's easy to say, hey, I'm so confident in this business model and this marketing plan, this customer acquisition plan, and this revenue per customer. I know we can go acquire 50 customers paying us this much in year one. So we're going to generate this much revenue. So I'm going to build my whole, I'm going to raise this much money to fill the gap. It's like, you're not going to see that revenue. No matter how strongly you believe it, like you don't know what you don't know. So spend slowly, conserve your capital, wait, validate, improve, recognize. This whole idea of product market fit is really important to understand what that means. It means you've actually delivered a product, someone has purchased it, they've had success, you've figured out how you can scalably deliver that. Until you've done that, you don't have a business. And you shouldn't be hiring a bunch of salespeople or a marketing person or a bunch of engineers that are burning costs when you don't have validation of your market. So find ways to quickly validate that and achieve what product market fit is really all about. Those are the top two. I think if most just followed those two principles, their success rates would be dramatically higher. Their failure rates would be dramatically lower. And keep in mind, number three is it's a numbers game. Most fail. Most do. I mean, it's amazing. Even the last stat I saw a few years ago was 20% of tier one venture backed startups actually succeeded and got to a liquidity event. That means of the highest caliber, the best of the best startups, only 20% of them actually, escaped the atmosphere. All the rest burned up. And that's of the with the best investors, with the best resources made available to them. I don't know if that number's different today, but when I read that, I was like, that really puts in perspective, because there's another, and by the way, the ones that get backed by tier one venture, that's the 1% club. So then there's another 90%.
You already have some validation, and when you're backed by tier one, like if we're talking tier one VCs, you're more looking at growth capital now, the way that the market has shifted instead of like straight startup capital. So you already have like a decent chance.
Yeah, this is like seed funding. Yeah, seed funding. But you're not going to get their funding without high conviction that your idea makes sense, right? And that your team has the skills and capabilities to execute on that plan. Whether it's seed or a little growth capital, but there's a lot of companies that do growth capital that still crash and burn because they did not see what was coming around the corner, where an incumbent's like, you know what, you're not a product, you're just a feature we're going to add to our product. Like how many companies Facebook has killed? Or Google, just by adding a feature. There used to be companies back in the day, a lot of money raised for companies that did basically a search engine marketing tools that go on top, that bolt on top of Google, right? All these other tools and bid management tools and all these things that raised a lot of money. And then Google one day is like, we can just add this as a feature. And now what you're charging for is redundant, because it's not integrated. Two, you're charging, we're offering it for free to lock in, preserve our mode here, and extract all the value. So that's the thing too, is like, don't get too, no matter how great your idea, and don't assume no one else has thought of this. I hear this all the time. Like, what about this? I'm like, it sounds like someone's done that. No, I've checked. No one's done this yet. I'm like, I'm pretty sure someone has. There are no new ideas. It really is true. Like there's execution. And by the way, just because someone's doing it, that's fine. They may not be good executing. They might be the best thing happen to you because they're introducing and creating demand awareness for what you want to do. If you come in with a much better product, a much better delivery model, a better service layer, and solve the problem. But first, find out what their gaps are, talk to their customers, what they're happy about, what they're not, and find out, is there a need for this? If there's still an unmet need, with players in the space, that's fine. Competition's fine. In fact, it's, they'll proverbial, they'll take the arrows you get to land. That's a good model. Like a lot of companies have been really successful coming in second or third and just doing what someone else, the pioneers, are doing, better, more efficiently, or with more capital. So
That is great advice.
it's a fun, like that's just why I've chosen these hard paths. Like it's fun, it's exciting, it's challenging. It's exhausting. This is definitely my last one. You asked me earlier, is it really your last? I'm like, yeah, trust me. Life is passing way too fast to do this for any more longer than I have to. My goal is to find someone ultimately take this role.
I'm in the same boat as you, right? Like the startup life is rather exhausting. I am 4 or 5 months from, I was CEO of 2 businesses for a while, getting one off the ground and then managing one that was in a rather steady state. So that allowed me to kind of like stay. But that, 2 years of doing the startup grind again, and I'm in my 40s, was still exhausting to kind of like participate. So I completely understand. And at the same time, I love creating new things. And I feel that from you as well. Like if there's a problem and there's some way to solve it, like you and I are probably out there trying to make something happen. So I do love what you're doing at Donate Stock. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And I like really appreciate your time today as well. And if anybody is looking to make some stock donations, where are they going?
DonateStock.com. You can donate to any charity in minutes. It's fast, safe, free for donors. Super easy.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Steve.
Thank you.